Welcome to Positive Outcomes, where leaders turn hard-won experience into income, impact, and freedom.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Positive Outcomes, where professionals and leaders turn their expertise into income, impact, and freedom. And of course, I'm your host, Dr. Dorine. So it's not about me. Let's talk about our guest for today. Today's guest, his name is Matthew Delicâte. It is spelled Delicate. So I asked him right before the show, is he very delicate? I had to throw that on there. But it's spelled Delicate, okay? He is a former professional and college soccer player who transitioned into sports video technology. He's played a pivotal role in building Spiideo's North America business from the ground up, starting as an individual contributor and now serving as VP, leading and growing sales teams. What amazing. Matthew, you are welcome to Positive Outcomes.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, we are super happy to have you here. And this is an expertise that we've not had on the show. So we are really excited to learn what you do and how you do it. And I am sure there's someone that is going to be listening to us tonight that is in that field. And we know that they're going to learn from your expertise in that journey. So take us back to your playing days, right? What did being a professional and college athlete teach you about discipline and performance? The reason I'm asking is because I know a lot of us, our children are in that field. And there's a saying that if you play sports, you're going to be a good team player, you're going to be disciplined, you're going to be this. Is that really true? And how did that teach you?
Good questions. Discipline, I think is really important. I think it's more important than motivation because it's kind of what gets you to show up on the days even when you don't feel like it necessarily. The part about being an athlete is what you do on the field on a game day is really only a small part of what goes into performing. And that's kind of like years of practice, like in a formal setting with a coach, but it's also like the years of practice that you did in the backyard or did by yourself or just out on, with your friends. And talking about discipline, like I knew a lot of talented players growing up that preferred having a social life or going out. And you hit kind of the age where you can go out and start, partying and doing that kind of stuff, that can really quickly derail a career as an athlete. And I've seen a lot of players, even more talented than me, that kind of fell into that. So I think there's discipline and sacrifice that goes into being able to like succeed at the next level. And I would actually even go as far to say, like, even for myself, I made it into college, made it as a professional and had a career, but there was still a couple of steps up from where I was. And, yeah, it's like one of those things that I always think back on as maybe I could have been a bit more disciplined or could have done a bit more to position myself. I think there was also probably a knowledge gap that I didn't have that maybe if I could go back and do it again, I could have maybe gone up another notch or another step. So we'll never know. I got to play at a great level, but I think that you've got to be willing to be disciplined if you want to succeed in any field. And I think that's carried through into my non-playing career with Spiideo, where I did about 12 months kind of like as an entrepreneur with a friend in the sports video business for youth soccer. And that's what got us to kind of meet serendipitously Spiideo. And since then, we've been growing the Spiideo business in North America for the last 7 or 8 years.
That is super amazing. So talking about soccer, right? Did you just grow up wanting to play soccer, or was it a situation where your parents like, hey, play soccer? For example, like I'm from Cameroon by background. I'm in the States now. I've been here for over 30 years. But I remember when I was back home when we were younger, there was like a field outside where my brothers, my sister, they would just go outside and play. Is that the case for you? Or is it something that you just learned growing up? Was it like a community kind of sports for you, or?
Yeah, we're in England, where I grew up. It's almost a religion, and so we would play before school, we would play at lunch, we'd play at recess, we would play after school, and that was all before we got home. And then maybe we'd have dinner and like actually have like a practice with a team or something. So it was like we kind of lived and breathed the sport. It was kind of, I grew up just really loving the game, and playing all the time for fun was a big part. And I would say it didn't even necessarily become quite serious for me until I was probably 15 years old. So up until that point, I just loved doing it. I played a lot of other sports. Soccer, football was my number one. And yeah, it was just always a passion. So definitely was not coerced by my parents to play.
Wow, that's amazing. So you love it. It's a passion for you. So you love it. And that makes a big difference, right? When you're doing it as a passion, as something that you really, really like. I have to pick your brain on this one, right? For someone that was not a passion, let's say for my brothers that I used to say, dad would say, you guys go outside and play some soccer, go and exercise, go outside, right? For someone that was not a passion, and like you said, it was a religion, and they were just like, go out, play soccer. And they ended up playing it, and maybe they like it, maybe they're just doing it because daddy said it, or maybe money, scholarship, or whatever. And you have to coach someone like that in your team. What will you tell them?
I think it comes, I think you need to get context on what their goals are. Like if somebody, I think that I had the desire to want to play at a higher level. And so you need to kind of understand, like if somebody says to you, I want to be a college player, I want to be a professional. So to have that dream is one thing. And then you can kind of like look at it from, okay, well, what can I do this year to take a step forward towards that dream? And the actions that I'm taking aligned with what that goal is. And so if they're just there because it's a social thing, they're having fun, and that's all they want to do, then that's fine. And maybe they don't need to do that much extra practice. But for the ones that have more ambitious goals, that's going to require like more dedication, more discipline, more practice, more learning. So I think it really kind of ties into like what is the ultimate goal? And then does your priorities, does your calendar, do your actions align with what you're saying?
That's amazing. That's amazing. So how did your athletic background, how did that prepare you for leadership in today's corporate world?
Good question. I think being performing on an individual level, so kind of being a role model of, I think having a good attitude and being coachable is huge. And that goes for in the sports world and in the business world. To be a team player, you should have a good attitude. You should be optimistic. You should be fun to be around. Like if you're not those things, it's probably going to be somewhat difficult for you. And maybe you're in the wrong field. Like there's plenty of things that you can do where you can do sports where you can be solo, different businesses where you can kind of work in your own little silo. So I think understanding like if you thrive in a team environment, and ever since I played the sport, I always cared about the team. And so the decisions that you make on and off the field are in the best interest of the team. And that's the same as being able to understand in a moment, like, should you pass the ball or should you shoot it yourself? And it's like, obviously the team wants to score a goal, wants to win the game. And you should be making the decision based on like what's in the best interest of the team, not what's in the best interest for me. And then I think that carries through in the business world around being coachable, working in a team environment, and knowing when you maybe have to help a teammate out or do a little bit extra that might not even be part of what your role and responsibility is. So yeah, I think to thrive in that team environment, I think the aspect of just teamwork and being positive and being a good teammate is really, really huge.
You have dropped a couple of nuggets even without knowing, and we needed to hear that. We started with discipline. You spoke a lot about the attitude. And one thing that you said that got to me is being coachable. A lot of us, we want mentors, we want coaches, but we are not coachable. You talked about being optimistic, fun to be around, and being positive. Guys, these are some nuggets that we all need to hear, right? Even not only for sports, but in our daily life, in corporate, in our businesses, in our jobs, because you want people to want to work with you. It's one team with one goal. We use this at one of my the companies I worked with in the past. That was our slogan: one team with one goal. And for you to be part of that team, what he said was we have to be disciplined, we have to have the good attitude, we have to be coachable, we have to be optimistic, fun to be around, and positive. That is really amazing. And that is why we are here, guys. Well, that's why we are having this show, right? So we can use our expertise to generate impact. And we need to hear these things and go and apply it. So coming back to you, what was the turning point where you decided to shift from sports to sports tech?
2016 was my final playing season. I actually had a slightly fortunate and unfortunate training injury that resulted in like some lower vertebrae that got fractured. That actually ended up finding a mass on my kidney, which ended up being benign, but they thought was cancer at the time. I had to have a surgery. So there was like a whole kind of spiel that happened during the season. By that point, I was 35 and I came back and played in a couple more games. And then I was like, I think it's time to call it a day. It's kind of like, I think once you hit 30 as an athlete, especially in soccer, goalkeepers typically can push the boundary and make it to 40, maybe past that. And most outfield players, once you get to your mid-30s, it's definitely difficult between 35 and 40 to keep up the pace. And so I think you kind of get to a point where you're asking yourself, am I coming back for another year? I'm sure I'm based in Philadelphia. You see this all the time. Like I think one of the Jason Kelsey's another one where it's like they, their bodies get so worn down. It's like, do they come back for another year? Can they stay in the game? And I think every athlete gets to that point. I think just given what happened with the surgery, and I've played from at a high level from the age of 15 to 35, so it was kind of two decades of my life, and I thought it was a good time to step away. And during that time, I made a good friend who's Nate Schiffman, and we started that business together, Cinesports, and then jumped into Spiideo together. And he's still at Spiideo. He's our VP of customer success, and so we've been on that journey really for the last almost decade, which has been really exciting.
This is amazing. And guys, we hear that on almost everybody that comes to this show, right? They turn a situation that might be challenging into an opportunity. We've heard that over and over again. For his case, it was, let's say, unfortunate, but he said it. And listen, he said, and fortunate, right? During that moment of going through the injury and, thinking it might be cancer and all that stuff, the tech sports, he gave birth to the tech sports company. So going back to you guys listening to us right now, what is that challenge that you're dealing with? Why don't you pause and reflect and think, is this a time? Is this a time? Is the world telling you to do something else? Look for a seed of opportunity in that challenge, just like Deli did. I'm calling you Deli because that's the name on your screen right now.
Yeah, that's how everybody knows me.
Okay, just like Deli did, right? You want to turn that challenge into an opportunity. So let's talk about Spiideo, right? You joined Spiideo, like you said, or you helped build its presence from the scratch. Like you're one of the founders, pretty much.
I'm not a founder in the sense of Patrick Olson, our CEO. I think Carl is our CTO, and then Oriane are kind of like the original co-founders of the company back in 2012. And it was around 2015 we created like what we call our virtual panorama, which is stitching two cameras together on like a big sports field to create like a panoramic view of the field. And they were able to kind of automatically turn on cameras from an iPhone, and you could have live video on an iPad on your scene remotely, which was like a pretty new thing at the time back in 2015. And so after about a year and working with the local Malmo Academy, which is a top soccer club, it's the hometown of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, which is a very famous well-known soccer player, came and played here in the MLS briefly, and they signed maybe about 30 customers over the course of a year with the help of the academy director from Malmo, and that's when we kind of got put in touch with them. So I didn't even know what a SaaS company was, like a software company. I didn't know what sports technology was at the time. We didn't use really sports technology in my playing career. It was you just get like game tape and would watch the game back over. That was pretty much all we did at that point. And I remember getting the demo of video and on Skype and just kind of blown away about what we saw. We were like, what, this is like incredible. It was like nothing we'd ever seen. So we just started reselling it for them and ended up signing about 30 Division I college soccer programs in the span of maybe 6 months. And then they realized, look, these guys have just signed, they doubled our customer base globally in a short time. So they thought, we're going to invest in bringing somebody in full time. So they hired like a general manager basically who was my former boss, Nate Winkle. And he came in and Patrick, I think, told him, you have to keep the Cinesports guys. You can't fire them because sometimes now that they were going to go to a different selling model instead of using a reseller, Nate ended up keeping us, brought us in kind of full time as individual contributors, selling, into conferences and like professional soccer teams was the initial target demographic we were going after. And so we've gone from, I think, 30 customers to thousands over the last few years. I think we have close to 10,000 scenes installed globally. So been exciting to go from maybe 30 when I started and 15 people at the company, and now we have, I think, close to a couple hundred headcount. And it still feels like we're on like a new journey. Even now, we've gone out of startup mode into kind of like scale up and growth, and there's like a lot to do. So it's kind of feels like we're almost starting all over again, basically, which is neat.
Wow, that is so amazing. What was the biggest challenges in those early days? Like, it's new. What were some of the challenges you guys face?
I think you wear a lot of hats. Like we were doing the sales, we were doing the onboarding, we were getting texts or calls from coaches at 9:00 at night if there was an issue. So certainly early on, we were kind of doing everything. And as we've grown and become more professional now, we obviously have specific departments that handle customer success and onboarding. And we have a department that does support. And that's all tiered based on like the need and the customer level. And so it's evolved into something much bigger. And now what I do is a lot more specialized. And so don't have to kind of, I think I can work a bit more 9 to 5 rather than back then it was just all hands on deck at any moment, especially nights and weekends. That's definitely been one big change. But it was also nice to do that because you got to be in the weeds and you got to understand the customers, their needs, their pain points, the onboarding experience. I think that was all valuable to carry through, but maybe not sustainable to do for another decade.
Yep. That was a really good time to learn. But like you said, it's not sustainable because as the business is growing now, you bring in more people, more team members to help you through the process. I must ask, in a sales market that is kind of new, how did you gain trust with clients?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a couple of parts to it. Like we went, if you want to think of low hanging fruit, like we had soccer backgrounds. So obviously going to where we played college soccer, going within the same conference, knowing, also what's in the vicinity. Like at the time we were based in Richmond, Virginia. So we had top schools like Duke and Wake Forest and UVA kind of like all in driving range. So going and doing in-person visits and leaning on the soccer background was big. So I think that definitely was a factor. The product was also really amazing. So we knew that if we could get the product in front of people, they would be wowed. It was a combination of just the low-hanging fruit and network, and then having a great product, and then that's what allowed it to snowball. Is because then once we had a customer using it, they had 10 home games, right? So now every single team that came in to play, you would reach out and say, hey, you're coming to play at UVA this weekend. We've got Spiideo installed. We can get you a trial account. Try this out. And all of a sudden, you multiply that across a dozen different teams. You're getting dozens more leads. So that's kind of like how it snowballs. So you have to obviously get a stepping stone and baby steps. And the same thing happened with the USL. We managed to sign the Tampa Bay Rowdies. They were the first official professional team. Same thing. People came to the Rowdies to go to preseason, to go to games. So we could get them the technology in their hands. And then we ended up signing like a league deal with the USL and now have, I think, almost the full pyramid of the USL from Championship to League One to USL2 to USLW. We have the entire ecosystem, which is really exciting. So but it all has to start somewhere. And just getting that first team is obviously huge. And from there, you can build it out.
That is super, super amazing the way you guys planned it out. I think the strategy was really intense, like the strategy, the layout, the positioning was just really perfect. So now as the vice president, what leadership lessons have you carried forward from both the fields and the boardroom in your role?
I think it's a good question. I would say expectation setting is really important, both internally and externally.
Expectations.
So you really, it's one of those things where if you set expectations incorrectly, like if you overpromise and underdeliver, you've got somebody that's upset, and they could get the exact same outcome, but if you underpromised and overdelivered, they have a completely different, even if they got the exact same kind of service, or there was literally no change, but just the fact that the way it was discussed prior to, that completely changes it. And so that's the same for how you we're recruiting a lot of people into the company right now. If you don't set expectations on what their onboarding is going to be like and what kind of support they'll have, how much work they'll have to do to self-source leads and problem solve. Like, so if you don't set the expectations right, you're going to end up in a place where somebody doesn't, they may be upset, or they're like, this is not what I got myself. I didn't want to get myself into this. And it's the same for a customer. So I think that's really, really important is one thing. Then I think there's accountability is another one. So, and this again goes both internal and external. So it's a component of having a customer, like they should have some skin in the game. Like we have a sales process that can take months. We've got enterprise deals that can take 6 months or 12 months. And you need both parties to be engaged and to be accountable for like what the next steps are to keep things moving along. And that comes back to those expectations and setting those correctly. And the same with teammates and employees around making sure that they're doing their work. We have a few core values. One of them is to have fun. So how we work together is important. Going back to like having a good attitude and being coachable, and then being able to be open and honest with teammates to give feedback, whether it's, arguably good or bad, but being able to have candid conversations and ultimately continue moving things in a positive way forward without necessarily being worried about egos and whatnot, which I think can really slow things down in big companies.
And for the leaders that are listening to us right now, because he said two things that I think that is something that any leader should embrace, right? Expectations. I know I have even worked for leaders that I didn't know what I was doing because they did not set clear expectations, and they did not even set a platform where I can question them or get clarity as to what my job descriptions were supposed to be. Deli said it perfectly. We have to set that clear expectations, timeline, time frames, reconnecting one-on-ones to make sure that those expectations are being met. And then he talked about accountability while having fun, right? You have to have some metrics, KPI, whatever you're going to use it from in your company. But we have to take away the tense environment of I'm the VP of sales and you work for me and I intimidate you. I just love the fact that part of their value is having fun while holding them accountable. So I want to encourage some of the leaders listening to us right now, just take what Deli said and apply it tomorrow. It will totally change your team dynamics. Let them have fun while you take the ownership to set clear expectation and hold them accountable. I had to say that because, leadership I love it so much just because I have been leading for over 15 years and I have failed, but I've failed forward because each time I felt like I'm failing, I've learned something. So Deli, thank you so much for that. That was very, very, very insightful. So now let's talk about for professionals that are considering the next chapter, right? What is one piece of advice that you would give them? Like they've gone past that 35 years old and that's what they've done for decades and decades. And they're like, what now?
That's a good question. I would say it comes back a little bit to what we talked about earlier around maybe the youth athletes and what their goals are. And I think understanding yourself and knowing what you enjoy doing, like what can you align part of your like passion and skills and like what you like to do along with like the type of work that you're doing. The part that I talked about with soccer was playing soccer all day long as a kid didn't never felt like work. So it was like, and I would say, so being disciplined about practicing, I didn't even need discipline because I just loved doing it.
It's a passion for you.
Exactly. And the discipline part was more around, like I mentioned, not going out and now drinking as a teenager and going to like a party or something. So that was maybe a slightly different type of discipline, but the actual doing the work was easy. And so if you can find something that maybe feels like work to other people, but is easy for you, then you've already got a leg up because you're going to spend an extra hour in the morning and you're going to spend an hour of your evening doing it because it doesn't feel like work to you. So kind of, I think understanding like what those things are for you, like what do you love talking about? What could you give a presentation on without any preparation? Like, so you think about those types of things that get you ticking. And then how can you spend more time doing that? And then I think it also would come back to kind of like some of your goals and like where you want to end up. And so think about, I didn't just turn, I'm going to be 44. So I'm kind of thinking, where do I want to be when I'm 50? You know, as I've got kids and different things going on. So it's like, where do I want to be as a partner, as a Spiideo employee, as a dad, and then kind of like rewind and think about like, okay, if that's where I want to be, what can I do for the rest of this year to kind of take a step towards that? So I think I always like just projecting out 5 or 10 years and then just kind of thinking about what can we do today to kind of like move that forward. What you end up, your identity and like your character is going to be built off of like your habits and your choices. And so I've had plenty, I'm big into fitness, but I've had plenty of periods where I eat too many chips, Ben and Jerry's at nighttime. I'm doing things and it's like maybe one off is one thing, but now if I'm doing it every single night and I do that for 3 months, all of a sudden there's going to be an effect from that. So you need to recognize like your habits and your actions aligned with where you want to go. And so I want to try and be my fittest, healthiest self by the time I hit 50. So yeah, the pint of Ben and Jerry's for me every night is something that I'll do occasionally, but I can't do it every night and then meet that goal. So I think, so to summarize, I would say, think about what your goal is and then kind of rewind, think about what is it that I can do today, this week, this month, or through the end of the year, like take a really nice positive steps towards that goal.
And it's a lot of nuggets, guys. Leadership starts with you. It starts with you leading yourself. It starts with you holding yourself accountable. It starts with you planning yourself. He said, what are your habits? What are your choices? What are your actions? And he gave an example, right, as to what he does. So I like when people say stuff and actually back it up with the solution. So this was solution-based thinking, like I always talk to you guys about, right? He gave his own personal example. For example, what are my 5-year goals? I'm going to be 50. What am I planning to be 50? So the challenge to us listening to Deli tonight is, do we have a 5-year goal anyway? What are we doing today? What are we doing next week? What are we going to do by the end of the year to get to that outcome? But he made it really clear is that it starts with your passion. What is that thing that you do effortlessly? For other people, it's like you're working, but to you, you're having fun, right? So if someone is in the space where, oh, what am I going to do next? What is it that you do effortlessly? Start with that. Then strategize, put a plan in place, time frames, and make sure they're aligned. And like, this is so much nugget that is just making me excited. And I'm really hoping that our audience will take this and act on it. Okay. I must ask this to Deli. Fear often keeps people from starting. You know, did you have any fear when you started? And how did you push past that fear? And again, how can our audience learn from that?
You have to be willing to be a novice or be bad and know that that's inevitable. Like if you could think of any top, I like, if we just use an athlete example, but like if you go back to, if you look at any top athlete, Tiger Woods or Roger Federer or anybody, there was a time when they were a kid and they were probably really, really bad, right? And I've got a 4-year-old who I'm trying to teach how to catch the ball with his hands and he drops it half the time and he gets mad. And like, especially like if you're 30 or you're 40 or you're 50 and you're thinking of changing careers or whatever, you're going to have to be willing to be bad. It's necessary. You can't jump in and just be movie star level or Roger Federer level. Like it doesn't happen. I recently took up playing the piano, which I'd stopped when I was like 11, and it's really hard. Like I have lessons where it's awkward. I get upset and frustrated with myself, and it's like, but you just have to be willing to be bad. And it's the same thing for you've got this podcast going, but I think a lot of people don't. They start a podcast and they never get past episode 20. They stop. And there's like a huge, I don't know what the stats are, but it's like a massive drop off. Like 90% of people stop before episode 20. And it's like, I've followed Chris Williamson. He just did episode 1000. And he started and had Matthew McConaughey, movie star. And he started 7 years ago and just was doing the same thing like everybody else. But it's like you have to be willing to push through that. 0 to 20 is probably not going to be great. And episode 1000 is a completely different story. So are you able and willing to like push through that kind of like pain? And I think it's the fear of, I'm going to look silly, or it's not going to feel good. It's not going to work. But it's necessary to be able to push through that initial phase. And you can never get to the other side. You can never get to mastery without enduring that phase.
Amazing. You have to be willing to be bad. And you guys don't want to hear the story of my first podcast. I almost said, I'm not doing this again. But I stayed. And I even did not want them to publish anything till September. Like, really, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm like, no, I'm not comfortable. And like, you just have to publish it. You just have to do it. And it looks terrible. Oh, I need to change my office. I was going to revamp my entire office, my entire life. But I said, I'm just going to show up and be authentic who I am. And
exactly.
thank God for my producer.
You might, and maybe in 6 months, maybe you put a different picture up or you put a new quote up, but it's like, exactly, just be willing to put it out there. And like, and you can, once you get the momentum, you can tweak that stuff as you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm so happy he's saying this and we are all learning, right? It takes starting. Fear is just an illusion, I think. Right? It's something that really will push you forward. If you're scared so much, what I've learned, Deli, is that when I'm so scared of something, it's actually something I need to do. If I'm like really, really scared, it's something that I have to do to align me with my passion. Like I love talking to people. And you don't want to know how I told my producers, you are not publishing that. I don't want that. I don't want to start it. We just had a conversation. But I'm enjoying it so much. I talk to 6 people a day and it's been so amazing. So the take-home message here is that just get started and be consistent. And I'm so happy he talked about that after 20 episodes, people get burned out, but that's not going to be me, guys. I'm saying it and everybody's hearing it because I will not give up because I've met so many amazing people and the viewers are reaching out to me on telling me, Dorine, I have learned, I have changed this, I have done this. Even for my coaching business, right? A lot of people, I just said, okay, you have this problem, go listen to Deli. I'm using it to help other people. I just send them the link. Go listen to this person. Go listen to the lawyer I just spoke to. Just listen to the doctor I just spoke to. So it's really helping me out. So as we are rounding up right now, what do you have for the masses and how do they contact you?
Well, I guess Spiideo is a B2B business. So if any like one needs sports technology, they can go to our website and then so we do live streaming of sports, like automated live streaming. We can do replay for officials, and we do like a really awesome like performance analysis. So like video analysis. So the coaches and leagues and federations are kind of like who we go after at the youth, college, professional levels of all sports. And so that would be just our website at Spiideo. And then I'm just pretty much on LinkedIn, and we're recruiting new salespeople into the organization. But we actually have a lot of roles open, like customer success managers and support people. And we just opened up our first office after 7 years in Philadelphia. So I head up the office here in Philly, and happy to network with anybody that's interested in sports and or technology.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We always end our show by asking you some life lessons that would take people to positive outcomes. This is a positive outcome show. So can you give us some nuggets of some life lessons?
So a life lesson. Oh, that's a tough one on the spot. Let me have a think for a second.
You've already
I,
said so many of them already, just on the
yeah, I think time is very precious, and so how you spend your time is important. I want to say in one of the Avenger movies where he says no amount of money has ever bought a second of time, and so I think that was Iron Man that said that, but I have to double check. But basically, how you spend your time is important, and so I think if there are people listening who are not happy in what they do, but also have this fear factor, I think, at some point you've got to make that decision to kind of jump and go for it. So I think just make sure that you spend your time wisely, because you can't get it back. And so that whether that's with friends, family, the type of work and career that you have, be willing to be ruthless with how you spend your time, because you'll end up, your future self will be 80 or 90 before you know it, and you'll be looking back, and you don't want to do that in regret. So that would be my life lesson, is make sure you're spending your time as wisely as possible.
Amazing. Thank you so much. No amount of money can buy time. Spend your time wisely. That is our nugget for today, among the other ones that he already mentioned. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do your community a favor to share this podcast so all of us will come and learn. And when you go, I will advise you to be coachable. It doesn't mean a sports coach. It means at your job, at your community, in your family, in your relationship. Just take that feedback and try to fix yourself, because you cannot lead the world if you cannot lead yourself. All right. Thank you all so much for watching, and bye, guys. Thank you, Deli, for coming to the show.
Thanks for listening to Positive Outcomes. Follow the show and share this episode to inspire someone's next chapter.